reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke. The shepherds went in haste to Bethlehem and found Mary and Joseph and the infant lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known the message that had been told them about this child. All who heard it were amazed by what had been told them by the shepherds. And Mary kept all these things, reflecting on them in her heart. Then the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, just as it had been told to them. When 8 days were completed for the circumcision, he was named Jesus, the name given to him by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. The Gospel of the Lord.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
You all look about as awake as I feel. I've said this before some time ago, but I'm my sister and I, my family, we're Christmas movie junkies. And it's not really Christmas unless you've watched the classics, Rudolph, Frosty, all those, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Miracle on 34th Street. The other day, last week, I was having dinner with some friends of mine from a former parish and having a conversation about Christmas movies. And they said to me, have you ever seen this movie? It's called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And I had never seen it. Has anybody seen this movie? Fantastic movie. Nick has seen it because I told him to watch it. Fantastic movie. And now probably one of my absolute favorites of Christmas. And I'm going to spoil it for you, just so you know. The movie is about a Christmas pageant, as if that wasn't obvious. But it's about a pageant that was supposed to go a certain way, and it doesn't. Because then, who becomes the stars of the show, of the pageant, are these undesirables from the town, the bullies of the town, those who don't go to church. They've never darkened the doorsteps of a church. They don't know who God is. They know nothing about Jesus, the Nativity, nothing. They become the stars of the show. And what was striking to me about it was the way in which they interpreted the Nativity. They made it their own. The way that the girl who plays Mary holds baby Jesus. The things that the kings bring up. They don't bring up frankincense and myrrh and gold. They bring up a ham. Because Jesus and Mary and Joseph were probably hungry. They don't leave right away. They sit down because, they were traveling for a while. And they needed to sit down. The undesirables of the town, who became the stars of the pageant, made the Nativity relatable. They made it relatable to them. It was how they understood the Nativity of the Lord. And it was absolutely brilliant. In 1959, Louis Cassels, who was the editor of the United Press International periodical, a Christian, devout Christian, wrote many books on religion. He wrote a parable about Christmas, called The Parable of the Birds. It's kind of long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I sort of edited it to fit our time frame today. But it goes like this. On one Christmas Eve, a long time ago, there was a man who just didn't get it. He wasn't a Scrooge, but he wasn't a believer either. That evening, his wife and his children got ready for Mass. He informed them that he would not be going to Mass with them. He didn't want to be a hypocrite. Disappointed, the family left without him. Just then it began to snow. He could hear the wind picking up and saw the snow beginning to fall a little bit more rapidly. Then suddenly, he heard a loud thud. He ran to the window, only to see that a flock of birds were flapping around in the snow. Trying to navigate the storm, they flew into his window, looking for warmth and safety. So he decided to help them. So he put on his boots and his coat. He trudged through the snow, and opened the barn door, turning on the light, thinking they'll find warmth and comfort and safety from the storm inside the barn. But the birds did not go in. So he went back into the house, he got some bread, and he made a trail of breadcrumbs from the birds into the barn, but still, the birds did not follow the crumbs. So he tried to shoo them into the barn, flapping his arms like a wild man, trying to steer them in, and they scattered every which way except the barn. So he began to think, they must think that I'm a terrifying, horrible creature. If only I was one of them, maybe they wouldn't be so afraid, and I could lead them to warmth and to safety. Just then, the church bells rang through the crisp, cold night. Christmas carols could be heard in the distance, and at that moment, he got it. It dawned on him what exactly the incarnation meant. And he fell to his knees right there in the snow and said to himself, "Now I see why you had to do it." In the prologue of St. John's Gospel, which we just heard today, St. John writes, "The world did not know him. He came to what was his own, but his own people did not accept him. And the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us." God did everything so that his own people would know him. He set up covenants with them. He spoke to them through the prophets. He made them his chosen people, and yet they knew him not. And even to this day, so many people in our world still do not know Christ, even though he's made himself relatable to us. By becoming a human being, God makes himself known, accessible, approachable, and relatable. And yet for centuries, we've been asking the question, how do we know God? It seems, I think, rather impossible, especially in the world in which we live today, one in which the ideologies and trends of our world seem to serve a sense of moral ambiguity. What is truth? What is real? How can we know God in the climate in which we live today? And I think about that movie, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Sometimes the reason why we don't know who God is because our vision is skewed. We have a particular vision of the way things should be, and when it doesn't go that way, we get upset. I often say that we live with a 3-foot radius and can't see 3 feet beyond ourselves, myself included at times. And that was the case in this movie with the gossipy church ladies, who do exist, by the way, the gossipy church ladies who couldn't see because they wanted and they assumed that the pageant had to go a certain way. And when these kids came in and shook it all up, they got upset. But they made Christ relatable. They made them see things a little different. And I think that's the message of Christmas. Christ makes us see things differently because he didn't come in the expected way that the people wanted him to. He came to them in the form of a human being, meek and humble. He came to them born in a manger, in a feeding trough. He didn't come in the way that they expected him to. He came a little differently. And I think that's how we can begin to understand our God in the world even today, is with a change of vision, seeing things a little differently. First of all, our vision needs to be upward to God. Our vision needs to look up to God. So often in the world today, people are screaming downwards, to look down to that which is too earthly, screaming down with the government, down with police, down with authority. But we need to look up to the heavens, to see the stars, to see the moon and the sun, to experience the change of seasons and the way in which God created the world, to see that even today God still provides and sustains life for us, that he holds us in existence even to this day. Secondly, we need to look inwards. When we think about the things of God, taking them into our hearts, listening to the scriptures, listening to the voices, those of faith, to the Pope, to the bishops, listening with our hearts, not simply with our ears, to receive his word and the graces that come through the pattern of our worship, receiving him through the sacraments of the church, through confession and Holy Communion, listening to him in prayer, taking him in. St. Augustine so beautifully teaches us how just to do that, searching for him his whole life. When he finally stopped looking outside himself, he found the grace of God within. We need to take the grace of God within ourselves and listen to him with hearts open to his grace, to be filled through the pattern of our worship with his love. But yet we do need to look beyond ourselves as well. But look beyond our 3-foot radius, to look beyond the pattern of our selfishness, to be more concerned for the needs of others than for ourselves, to begin to see him in the faces of our neighbor. Because there we begin to see the face of our God. When we look upwards to the heavens, when we receive him into our hearts, we begin to see him a little more clearly in the faces of our neighbor, to see him in their needs. We can know who God is. We can know him just like we know anybody else in our world, because our God is accessible, approachable, and relatable. Because he makes himself known to us in the pattern of earthly things, in the way, the order of creation. We can know him. We can know him here and find him in the pattern of our worship and take him into ourselves. We can know who God is because he's relatable. He makes himself relatable to us even in our world today that seems to have grown cold with the things of God, but he relies on us to make him known as well. We begin to see him a little more clearly when we look beyond ourselves to see that our God is still active in the world today in such a way, when we begin to change our vision, to see things a little differently, our God becomes a little bit more relatable, more accessible and approachable. When our vision changes, we begin to see him a little more clearly in the pattern of our everyday lives. And then people begin to see him in us, simply because they know you. Let us pray that the graces of this Christmas may change our vision so that our God becomes a little bit more relatable to you and to me this day and every day. And so let us pray, Jesus, meek and humble of heart, touch our hearts and make them like your own.